Welcome to the Bible Breakdown. It's a black man and woman in America who no longer identify as believers. This show contains adult languages, themes, and isn't meant for children. As black people, we respect the history of the black church in America, but its current state is massively abusive, and we think the Bible might be part of the problem. Listen and let us know what you think. Peace. Welcome back to the Bible Breakdown. I'm your host, Kat.
And I am TK.
Hello, TK. How are you doing this Sunday morning? Or, this Sunday afternoon.
I'm a little annoyed. I'm not going to lie to you.
I was getting those vibes from you. I've been trying to cheer you up before we started recording, but to no avail. What's irritating you?
No, it's always nice to talk to you. I just don't want to put that energy on you. So many things. Several times I've said on here before, dating situations, and then currently in this moment, I've been trying to find my massage gun that I just got maybe not even a month ago, and I don't know where it's at. I feel like I just used it maybe a couple days ago, and I'm worried that it fell out of my gym bag because it's done that before, but usually when that happened, I heard it. And so I feel like I used it after I went to the gym. The last time I was at the gym was on Wednesday. So I feel like I've used it since then, but some reason I cannot find it in my home. It wasn't in my vehicle.
So the next logical step is calling the gym.
Yeah, I thought maybe somebody who was over here took it, but I asked her, did she take it? And she said no. So.
Well, and sometimes people lie, so there's that too.
That is true, but I don't think she's lying about it.
Okay. Well, hopefully not, and hopefully it turns up. But if not, another way of looking at it is, you've got a pretty good life going. You've got time to go to the gym. Even losing a massage gun is a certain type of luxury.
This is true. I was blessed to be able to afford it. It's definitely...
It's like me when I'm complaining about the cleaning lady. It's like, man, I might have some legitimate gripes, but at the end of the day, I gotta clean the lady.
To be fair, I got this massage gun on discount, but yeah, sure, tomato.
Like I said, but it's still, there's, of all the problems you could be having, these are pretty highbrow.
I do. I'm a goddamn American, so I have highbrow problems.
Yeah.
But
you've graduated to white people problems, which is, I lost my massage machine on the way from the gym.
With that being said, I saw that, I don't know if I have white problems, but I watched an interesting video the other day about, we might be in the end times as far as America goes as the superpower of the world. So enjoy it while you have it.
That's how every superpower, no superpower lasts forever. All these empires, kingdoms, everything, it's unsustainable. And the idea that it could last forever is silly.
I don't know. China's been pretty consistent for about 5,000 years. So.
But it took a lot of war, and they've just been around longer. And even then, what we know as China now drastically changed during World War II. So you could make the case that because even the Chinese Empire, it's over. It had to turn into the communist, the People's Republic of China. So you actually helped bolster my point. Even if a kingdom went on for 5,000 years, it eventually has to come to an end. America had 200 plus years. That's fine. It was built on human trafficking. It shouldn't, exist as it has. It should go through some sort of evolution. That's the arc of justice.
Whatever you say, you fucking commie.
I'm not a commie. In fact, I'd like it to be I've been watching that Napoleon movie, and I think a bloodless coup is much preferable. I think a lot of times when people are resistant to change, they think that it's going to affect them negatively. But a lot of the things that, people who might call me a commie, like a lot of these programs reduce mental health issues, crime, all these things that we're trying to eliminate with police for some reason could actually be eliminated with more social programs. So instead of using our money just to punish people all the time, we could actually invest in our people, which ultimately helps everybody. So, but we're not here to talk about helping people today. We're here to talk about the Bible. So do you remember what happened last time on the Bible Breakdown?
It's been a few weeks, but from my notes, Solomon's palace and other buildings were...
it was very HGTV.
Yeah, it was a lot of buildings.
Mm-hmm.
There was more dedication of the temple, which, I don't know, what is that, just like decor and things that they all felt like they wanted to put in. Solomon gave a speech. I don't remember exactly what it was about, but I do know that. And then, what else? God finally appeared again to Solomon. Solomon's kind of, from what I recall, Solomon's kind of been chilling this last.
Yeah, he's, like I said, he's billed as being sort of the maybe favorite son of King David. Definitely not his oldest. Like, to me, one of the things that stood out in the last sort of chapters we read were the story of the succession of Solomon and how his mother interjected on his behalf to make sure that he was the successor.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah,
very Game of Thrones.
But so far, Solomon seems to be less violent than David, but not violent.
Yes.
So I would say he's an improvement.
Yeah, sure. I don't know.
Do you think he was maybe having like secret conversations with the creator of the universe?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I don't think anybody possesses that power and never has.
Okay. I'm kind of with you there. Okay, so today we're going to be reading 1 Kings 10, New Revised Standard Version, Visit of Queen Sheba. I've been looking forward to this. This is maybe one of my favorite stories in the Bible. It's a really famous one. And yeah, let's get into it and see what we think. When the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, fame due to the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. She came to Jerusalem with a very great retinue, with camels bearing spices and much gold and precious stones. And when she came to Solomon, she told him all that was on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba had observed all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food of his table, the seating of his officials, and the attendance of his servants, their clothing, his valets, his burnt offerings that he offered at the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. So she said to the king, "The report was true that I heard in my own land of your accomplishments and of your wisdom, but I did not believe the reports until I came and my own eyes had seen it. Not even half has been told to me. Your wisdom and prosperity far surpasses the report that I heard. Happy are your wives. Happy are these your servants who continually attend you and hear your wisdom. Blessed be the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel, because the Lord loved Israel forever. He has made you king to execute justice and righteousness." Then she gave the king 120 talents of gold, a great quantity of spices, and precious stones. Never again did spices come in such quantity as that which the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Moreover, the fleet of Hiram, which carried gold from Ophir, brought from Ophir a great quantity of almond wood and precious stones. From the almond wood, the king made supports for the house of the Lord and for the king's house, lyres also and harps for the singers. No such almond wood has come or been seen to this day. Meanwhile, King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba every desire that she expressed, as well as what he gave her out of Solomon's royal bounty. Then she returned to her own land with her servants. The weight of the gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold, besides that which came from the traders and from the business of the merchants and from all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land. King Solomon made 200 large shields of beaten gold. 600 shekels of gold went into each large shield. He made 300 shields of beaten gold. 3 minas of gold went into each shield, and the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. The king also made a great ivory throne and overlaid it with the finest gold. The throne had 6 steps. At the top of the throne was rounded in the back, and on each side of the seat were the armrests and 2 lions standing beside the armrests, while 12 lions were standing, one on each end of a step. On the 6 steps, nothing like it is ever made in any kingdom. All Solomon's drinking vessels were gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were pure gold. None were silver. It was not considered as anything in the days of Solomon, for the king had a fleet of ships of Tarshish at sea with the fleet of Hiram. Once every 3 years, the fleet of ships of Tarshish used to come bring gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Thus, Solomon excelled all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom. The whole earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put into his mind. Every one of them bought a present, objects of silver and gold, garments, weaponry, spices, horses, and mules, so much year by year. Solomon gathered together chariots, horses, had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses, which he stationed in the chariot cities and with the king in Jerusalem. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones, and he made cedars as numerous as the sycamores of the Shephelah. Simon's import of horses was from Egypt and Q, and the king's traders received from Q at a price. A chariot could be imported from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. So, through the king's traders, they were exported to all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Aram.
Thanks be to God.
Yeah, so take that, brokies.
I mean, this was nothing more than, to me, another display of, I don't know, wealth within the business, or not with, well, I guess you can call it a business too, within the
oh yeah the business is called pimping.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure why I've said this. Feels like for what's been forever, I'm not sure why we continue to have to know exactly down to the T how much items are being given. This is like inventory listing. I feel like we're going through an Excel spreadsheet right now every time we read a chapter like this.
Yeah. I want to go back a little to the Queen of Sheba, because I think I've mentioned before in previous episodes that the Bible is taken from an oral tradition. And what I might not have mentioned is that a lot of these oral traditions still persist in this part of the world, in the Middle East and Africa. And so specifically in Egypt, they have their own telling of the night that Sheba, or their own version of the story of the Queen of Sheba and Solomon. And she actually had a name. It was Maketa. Mm-hmm. And she is, the way that they tell it, it was a little sexier. Like the king kind of ends up using a ruse to seduce her, but it turns out she wanted to be seduced because she's a queen. She doesn't have any other equals. So they have this sort of meeting of the minds and meeting of the bodies. And the legend goes that she either married him or had his baby, and that even the current like royal family of the Ethiopians claim to be descended from Solomon.
Interesting.
It is very interesting. Thank you for noticing that. So, yeah, to me, it's also.
Do you believe that yourself?
So as far as
So they're basically like the royals, the royal family.
I think it's a legend. I think it's a helpful legend that might have some facts in it, but like most legends, I think they get exaggerated over time. Like let's say like maybe like King Arthur, like in the Knights of the Round Table, where that's sort of grounded in a type of reality but was mostly fictional. Like I said, I don't think there's enough for me to like base my entire life on, but it is a good story, and I respect it for persisting for so long. This would have been maybe 5,000-6,000 years ago or something. So, and also the churches, like like the first Christian churches are in Africa, in Ethiopia. They're amazing. Like there's one completely carved out of one rock. It's awesome. So yeah, I encourage everyone. Yeah, I would encourage anybody or everybody who's listening. I'll try to find like some sources if you want to learn more about it. But I think because we're giving such a narrow tunnel vision of history, like at least where we're from, it's nice to have a more expanded view, so we're able to understand the context of these stories more too. Because like I said, I doubt that he was like the biggest king around. Like the Bible's saying this, but once again, it helps their cause to be like, oh my God, Solomon, you could never imagine.
Yes.
And the fact too, like the queen of, Makketo was like, oh, and look how happy your wives are. I doubt they were that happy. Usually whenever you're in a situation where you're all sharing one husband, and you were probably just used as a political, pawn, I don't know how women survived this. It sounds absolutely awful. But they would have been one of the, I guess, more privileged, but still.
Yeah, still slaves or held captive within their own right.
Yeah. Now this is kind of like well, I don't know. We'll see. But like, if you lived in these times, do you think you ever would have bought like a woman? You were saying you're having dating troubles earlier. Do you think like
a prostitute, or just bought a woman as far as...
No, just like outright. You could just buy people. Like these were human traffickers.
I mean, I don't know how to answer that because...
Honestly.
This feels like that question where white people are like, if I was in that time, I would have not been a slave master. But it's like...
it's called moral confidence.
But that's the culture. So it's hard...
Just give her your best guess, because there were people who didn't.
If I'm getting transplanted, whatever. If I'm getting transported, yes, into that time period with my mentality now, I wouldn't buy a woman. Or if I'm buying them, I probably would do some shit like buy them to set them free. I don't know.
Okay.
But if I grew up in that time period, I think I would have to have a unique experience for me to go against that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe because naturally I'm just a nonconformist. I don't do shit just because other people do it. So if I'm naturally like that and I was just in that time period, maybe I'll just be like, yeah, this is not cool.
I think that's a pretty solid answer. That felt honest. Like if it was bad, I would have just taken it out of the show.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to equate it to today, like I am how I am despite a lot of men still being very much more misogynistic and controlling than I am. So maybe just naturally, I probably would be like, no, I won't do that.
I mean, I think you have always maintained that women are people.
I find it interesting when you do that. And maybe it's just like the age bracket that I'm in. But
And what bracket is that for our listeners?
Well, I'm in my early 30s, so...
So you're 25 to 35.
Yes. Well, 35 seems mid to me. Mid-30s, but okay.
I'm saying you're in that range. I didn't want to give everybody your exact age. I'm just saying, like, if you're talking about an age bracket, that means like there's stuff in between.
The point I was going to make is that I find it interesting because I've tried to go into situations where I'm like, oh yeah, you have choice in this as well, ma'am. And for whatever reason, I've run into this thing where no, a lot of women just want you to make the decision. Like they actually feel uncomfortable, and they see that when you try to give them choice or you try to ask their opinion, somehow that is you not being a man or you being shy.
Oh, you're
being,
not dom enough.
yes, like, and it's
So
like,
what you're
no.
saying is women aren't people.
No, I would never say that.
No, I get you. You're saying like right now the culture is very much, at least where we are, is for the most part women are conditioned that men are supposed to lead everything at all times and be kind of like daddy dom.
Yeah, and it's confusing as
Yeah.
just as a person.
Yeah, it's hard. Listen, it's yeah, we're out here, but yeah, I'm glad we finally got to read that one. I've always wanted to see more media. Like there's so many Bible stories that are made, but I don't really get to see this story very often. Once again, because this always got me excited too when I was younger, because this was pretty much like inarguably a black woman in the Bible. There's a lot of people who even now, like in some media, who want to make her very pale, but you know, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, this part of the earth, that area of the earth, this would have been what we as Americans would consider a black woman. Now there might, because blackness is kind of a nebulous term, but she would have been melanated for sure.
I don't know what nebulous means.
Kind of indefinable, cloudy.
Oh, okay.
Because it's kind of, it means cloud-like. Like you can't really grasp it. It's always shifting. Gotcha. Yeah, ever shifting. So, all right, you want to read the First Kings 11? Sounds like Solomon's messing up.
Yes, Solomon's errors. King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women from the nations concerning which the Lord had said to the Israelites, "You shall not enter into marriage with them, neither shall they with you, for they will surely incline your heart to follow their gods." Solomon clung to these in love. Among his wives were 700 princesses and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For when Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not true to the Lord his God, as was the heart of his father David. For Solomon followed Astarte, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. So Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not completely follow the Lord, as his father David had done. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and for Molech, the abomination of the Ammonites, on the mountain east of Jerusalem. He did the same for all his foreign wives, who offered incense and sacrifice to their gods. Then the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice, and had commanded him concerning his matter. And he should not follow other gods, but he did not observe what the Lord commanded. Therefore, the Lord said to Solomon, "Since this has been your mind, and you have not kept my covenant and my statutes that I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom from you and give it to your servant. Yet for the sake of your father David, I will not do it in your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. I will not, however, tear away the entire kingdom. I will give one tribe to your son, for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen." Adversaries of Solomon. Then the Lord raised up an adversary against Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the loyal house in Edom. For when David was in Edom, and Joab, the commander of the army, went up to bury the dead, he killed every male in Edom. For Joab and all Israel remained there 6 months, until he had eliminated every male in Edom. But Hadad fled to Egypt with some Edomites who were servants of his father. He was a young boy at the time. They set out from Midian and came to Paran. They took people with them from Paran and came to Egypt. to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who gave him a house, assigned him an allowance of food, and gave him land. Hadad found great favor in the sight of Pharaoh, so that he gave him his sister-in-law for a wife, the sister of Queen Taphanes. The sister of Taphanes gave birth by him to his son Genebath, whom Taphanes weaned in Pharaoh's house. Genebath was in Pharaoh's house among the children of Pharaoh. When Hadad heard in Egypt that David slept with his ancestors and that Joab, the commander of the army, was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, "Let me depart, that I may go to my own country." But Pharaoh said to him, What do you lack with them that you now seek to go to your own country?" And he said, "No, do let me go." God raised up another adversary against Solomon. Rezon, son of Eliada, who had fled from his master, King Hadadezer of Zabath. He gathered followers around him and became leader of marauding band. After the slaughter by David, they went to Damascus, settled there, and made him king in Damascus. He was an adversary of Israel all the days of Solomon, making troubles as Hadad did. He despised Israel and reigned over Aram. Jeroboam's rebellion. Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and Ephraimite of Zeradah, a servant of Solomon, whose mother's name was Zeruiah, a widow, rebelled against the king. The following was the reason he rebelled against the king. Solomon built the Millo and closed up the gap in the wall of the city of his father David. The man Jeroboam was very able, and when Solomon saw that the young man was industrious, he gave him charge over all the forced labor of the house of Joseph. Among that time, when Jeroboam was leaving Jerusalem, the prophet Ahijah the Shilonite found him on the road. Ahijah had clothed himself with a new garment. The two of them were alone in the open country. When Ahijah laid hold of the new garment he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. He then said to Jeroboam, "Take for yourself 10 pieces, for thus says the Lord, the God of Israel. See, I am about to tear the kingdom from the hand of Solomon, and will give you 10 tribes. One tribe will remain his for the sake of my servant David and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city I had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. This is because he has forsaken me, worshipped Astarte, the goddess of the Sidonians."
I like saying Astarte.
Okay, Astarte, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, and Milcom, the god of the Ammonites, and has not walked in my ways, doing what is right in my sight, keeping my statutes and my ordinances as his father David did. Nevertheless, I will not take the whole kingdom away from him, but will make him ruler all the days of his life, for the sake of my servant David, whom I chose, and who did keep my commandments and my statutes. But I will take the kingdom away from his son and give it to you, that is, the 10 tribes. Yet to his son I will give 1 tribe, so that my servant David may always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city where I have chosen to put my name. I will take you, and you shall reign over all your soul desires. You shall be king over Israel. If you will listen to all that I command you, walk in my ways, and do what is right in my sight by keeping my statutes and my commandments, as David my servant did, I will be with you, and will build you an enduring house as I built for David, and I will give Israel to you. For this reason I will punish the descendants of David, but not forever. Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam promptly fled to Egypt to King Shishak of Egypt, and remained in Egypt until the death of Solomon. Now the rest of the acts of Solomon, all that he did as well as his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the acts of Solomon? The time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. Solomon slept with his ancestors and was buried in the city of his father David. And his son Rehoboam succeeded him. Thanks be to God.
Yay! Okay, so the acts of the very last thing that one of the very last things it says, now the rest of the acts of Solomon and all he did, are they not written in the book of the acts of Solomon? It's like, okay, no need for sarcastic questions. But it sounds like that didn't make it into the biblical canon. We don't have that book. We have the Song of Solomon, but we don't have the Acts of Solomon.
Yeah, was it removed?
I don't know if they were removed or if they ever even originally made it into the canon or if they even still exist. I don't know. Are you looking it up?
I am.
Perfect. Okay. I also had some other questions. One, it sounds like one of Solomon's biggest errors, which is the first mistake man ever makes in the Bible, and that is listening to women. When we brought up the word astarte or start, listeners let us know which way we should say it. That made me want to look up who that was, and this is what I found on the World History Encyclopedia. Astarte is the Canaanite/Phoenician goddess of love, sex, and war and hunting, who developed from the Mesopotamian deity Inanna or Ishtar. She is usually associated with the storm god Baal, but seems to have been much more popular. She traveled to Egypt through trade, where she was adopted as a war deity and consort of Set.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so you mess up when you start worshiping goddesses. Don't do that. God has a penis, and that's it.
Apparently. Yeah, I don't agree with that, obviously. I mean, you should listen.
Well, don't say obviously. I'm trying to stop saying that because it isn't obvious.
To my listeners, I feel like it would be obvious because
we could have new people, and that kind of excludes them. It's not obvious.
Just like a woman, a woman to create a problem where there doesn't need to be one. But yes.
Well, that's what I would argue, that saying obviously creates a division where there doesn't need to be one. Like, it's not necessarily obvious. But I am interested in hearing what you believe.
Oh, I don't even know what to say to that. Yeah, I don't think that listening to women is going to lead to the downfall of mankind, is where I was going with this.
Oh, that's good to hear. That isn't always, I mean, it's obvious to me, but it's not always.
Also, I think the obvious still works in the context of this situation, because we literally just had a conversation about, hey, if you were in this time, how would you act, TK?
Yes, you're right. In that, yes, they could refer to that from earlier, but sometimes people are complicated and they can have like opposing ideas that they hold in their head. So I try not to assume that I know anything about anybody until they say it. So that's why I say, like, obviously isn't always the best, but obviously say what you feel.
Thank you. With that being said, the research that I just found about the Acts of Solomon is apparently, this is according to Wikipedia, it is a lost text that was referred to in 1Kings 11. Apparently, well, not apparently, but according to this text, the text was lost during the exile in Babylon, and this is according to the Geneva Bible editors. So, to answer what we were trying to figure out before, it was never officially put in the Bible.
So God decided it wasn't worth protecting. Got it. So another thing that was kind of interesting to me too was that since Solomon, like, the gift he asked for from God was wisdom, like, why did it wear off? Like, if God got so upset with him for, straying away from the true path, that seems like a lapse in wisdom. So
he didn't pay his subscription fee.
Is that what it was? Yeah. You hate when that happens, like when the credit card expires and it's like, oh no, I lost my good rate, I have to sign up again. You hate to see it. Sorry about that, Solomon, oh boy. But yeah, also that was a lot of wives. I feel like, do you think that he really had that many wives, or do you think that maybe was an exaggeration?
I feel like that was an exaggeration. To have, 700 wives or something like that?
Among his wives were 700 princesses and 300 concubines.
So he had 700 princesses, 300 concubines. So 1,000 wives, I guess, or women to deal with. Totally. That's a lot. I mean, I'm already in the space of, I think 3 is the limit. And the third
I was going to say 1 seems like a lot. A lot of work.
I think because I believe in non-monogamy, although I am able to do monogamy with the right person, I think that for what I've found to be a nice balance is you have your main partner or your primary partner, I should say, and then you have your, I wouldn't say secondary, but your other partner.
That's usually side piece. You can just say side piece.
I don't like to do that because I don't reduce people. I don't like using those terms.
It's accurate though.
No, because a side piece would indicate, to me, side piece has a negative connotation, like you're just...
It doesn't. That's just how we have societally, but a lot of times in real life, it's almost impossible to give the exact amount of emotional energy to two people, like in that context. So what ends up happening generally is you have like your main person, and then just historically, just observationally, men and women tend to have like either like a work wife or work husband or someone that they're able to not necessarily have to share a life with, but is, you know, and a lot of times they do end up sleeping with those other people and it becomes like a side piece, but you don't get the same intimacy necessarily, but you do get sort of that thrill of just that dating sort of energy that gets lost over time.
So in my story that I was telling,
okay,
the second or the side piece, the other person is just I think it's just a counterbalance to, because I don't believe that one partner can truly fulfill every need that you have. Like, it's just impossible. I don't care what anybody says. You can't expect your partner to be beautiful and also be your friend and also be your therapist and also be into everything that you like to do and also want to have sex all the time when you want to have sex and want to go on every trip you want to go on. Like, I just
listeners, please write in and tell TK why he's wrong.
Okay, I mean, go ahead.
I'm just joshing you.
But and then like a rotating third, I think just like those
and rotating third.
Rotating
See,
thirds.
you're a true African because you need 3 wives.
I don't know. I feel like a rotating third, that could be anybody in any given moment. Like, you just go out, you go to an event, you catch a vibe with somebody. Maybe I'll hang out a few times, and then that's it. And then you kind of just let it go. Like, I'm not pursuing necessarily something with this person.
I used to think I might be able to be polyamorous, but I think I'm too lazy.
Yeah,
like that's too much energy to give out.
I think I'm scaling back definitely from polyamory, more into non-monogamy, because I don't. Whereas I
ethical non-monogamy.
Yes, of course, always ethical with myself. I think I'm scaling back into that.
I think of this in the way of like media creation. You never know when someone might be listening to this. So I like to be as, specific as possible, especially when it's something like that, because I feel like most people have practiced non-monogamy historically. It's just been unethical. So I think the idea of ethical monogamy, I think it's important to say it because I want people to know, like, it is different than just like, oh, I'm just going to pretend to be faithful and cheat.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. I just want people to know that's not what you're not talking about that.
I am not.
Okay.
Thank you for the correction.
You're welcome. Or it's not even a correction. It's just a clarification because it's something that can be easily misunderstood.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome. Okay, anything else before I start 1Kings 12?
I think we covered everything. We got the Acts of Solomon. We figured out that
and then he died.
Yeah, Solomon died, but does anybody ever really die? Because I feel like we've had a few instances where somebody died, but then we go to like a past event later on in one of the books, and it's like, oh, this person's still
Well,
alive.
I mean, we're still talking about him, so there's that. But yes, I don't
We're
think...
also still kind of talking about David, and David's been dead.
Yeah, it's not well, I think we have established that the Bible so far isn't perfectly sequential, especially with a lot of the Samuel and Chronicles was kind of, to me, it was a little back and forthy a little bit-ish.
Sidebar. So yesterday was 420, and I ran across an article about how the church, or some churches or something like that, now supports weed smokers essentially. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, man, I've said this.
It's a good revenue source, man.
I've
throw
said
them crosses on a bottle.
I've said this before on past episodes. These dudes now, like, they just do whatever. Like, they have no. Mm-hmm. I don't even think they have any structure as far as, or I'm sorry, not structure is not the right word. Standard, because it's like, 50, 60 years ago, that would have been considered irreprehensible behavior. And now it's like, oh yeah, we support the gays. We support smoking weed with, like, so then you're not, like, that goes against, I think, what traditionally would be church standard.
Well, once again,
so you might as well not even call yourself that now.
But if we're looking at, though, if we take a step back and look at a wider view of church history, that's all they've ever done. As the societal Overton window shifts, the church just takes credit for it. So
that's just slimeball behavior. Like, I just don't like that. Like, because you're not really anything. You don't stand on anything. And so it just, to me personally, that's infuriating. And then, whereas you do have people, at least here in the United States, who are still very much traditional Christianity, at least on the surface they are. And so, to me, it just causes a lot of confusion that I think does not need to be there. I just wish, if we're going to go the route of being more accepting within Christianity, which I'm fine with, then let's, like, for real do that and just get rid of a lot of this bullshit and just start over with a new type of structure.
Good luck with that.
A more equal structure, a more diverse structure, inclusive.
Kind of get rid of the imperial sort of mindset that so many people have. I think for a lot of people, they'd be happy if we brought the monarchy back tomorrow. Like if we installed Trump as king and let his sons take over, like a lot of people would be up for that. If he was like, Jesus talked to me, he wants me in charge. I'm just like David. I don't know how to keep it in my pants.
This is why I feel like people need to get therapy.
They do, but you know what people need before they need therapy? Food. And like I said, I didn't tell the listeners, but over the past couple of days, I've been approached by like multiple people asking me for money for food, which is unusual. I have to say, like, that's not normal.
Has this been up in your Ivory Tower area?
This has been like in the Castleton area. So like I was at the mall. Okay. Like, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been, and of course there's always the people who are standing on the corners. We're used to that, but we shouldn't be, like, yeah, it's a very solvable problem that I'm going to start taking a more concerted effort to reach out to my lawmakers about. Like, it seems kind of, small, but it's something. Like, if they get 12 letters from people, they start taking action. And it is a safety issue. Like, that makes me scared for my safety when people are begging for food. Because I've studied history. I know what comes next.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, 1 Kings. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, which is why I feel like a lot of things that government does is very short-sighted to keep people.
Well, I would say that what we allow them to do, because we do live in a democracy. Like, everything we're doing, we're allowing. Because we're not voting these dudes out.
I don't have the articulation to argue that point right now. Mm-hmm. But I somewhat disagree.
I mean, like I said, we keep voting for the same people, and we keep telling each other voting doesn't matter. So
I think voting matters to a degree, but when your congressman, senator, etc., can still be voted in and go against what the people asked and not be punished for that.
Yeah, the punishment the punishment is voting them out, which we won't do. Like, people don't feel like taking the afternoon off to do. So that's the thing. Like, it's a long game. It's not something you can do tomorrow. It's something you have to put on your calendar for a couple months from now to get your paperwork together. It's a whole thing, but it does matter, because that's why they try to get you to not do it. But seriously, I got to get going so that I can get this car fixed.
Let's go.
Okay. 1 Kings 12, the northern tribes succeed. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had come to Shechem to make him king. When Jeroboam, son of Nebat, heard of it, for he was still in Egypt, where he had fled from King Solomon, then Jeroboam returned from Egypt. And they sent and called him, and Jeroboam and all the assembly of Israel came and said to Rehoboam, "Your father made our yoke heavy. Now, therefore, lighten the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke that he placed on us, and we will serve you." He said to them, "Go away for 3 days, then come again to me." So the people went away. Then King Rehoboam took counsel with the older men who had attended his father Solomon while he was still alive, saying, How do you advise me to answer these people? They answered him, "If you will be a servant to this people today and serve them and speak good words to them when you answer them, then they will be your servants forever." But he disregarded the advice that the older men gave him and consulted with the young men who had grown up with him and now attended him. He said to them, "What do you advise that we should answer these people who have said to me, 'Lighten the yoke that your father put on us'?" The young men who had grown up with him said to him, "Thus you shall say to this people who spoke to you, 'Your father made our yoke heavy, but you must lighten it for us.' Thus you must say to them, 'My little finger is thicker than my father's loins. Now, whereas my father laid on you a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions." So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the third day, as the king had said. "Come to me again the third day," the king answered the people harshly. He disregarded the advice that the older men had given him and spoke to them according to the advice of the young men. "My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, I will discipline you with scorpions." So the king did not listen to the people, because it was a turn of affairs brought about by the Lord, that he might fulfill his word which the Lord had spoken by Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam son of Nebat. When all Israel saw that the king would not listen to them, the people answered the king, "What share do we have in David? We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. Look now to your own house, O David." So Israel went away to their tents, but Rehoboam reigned over the Israelites who were living in the towns of Judah. When Rehoboam said Adoram, who was taskmaster over the forced labor, all Israel stoned him to death. King Rehoboam then hurriedly mounted a chariot to flee to Jerusalem. So Israel had been in rebellion against the house of David to this day. First dynasty, Rehoboam reigns over Israel. When all Israel heard that Rehoboam had returned, they sent and called him to the assembly and made him king over all Israel. There was no one who followed the house of David except the tribe of Judah alone. When Rehoboam came to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 chosen troops, to fight against the house of Israel to restore the kingdom of Rehoboam to the son of Solomon. But the word of God came to Shemaiah, the man of God, saying to Rehoboam of Judah, son of Solomon, and to all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the rest of the people, "Thus says the Lord, you shall not go up or fight against your kindred, the people of Israel. Let everyone go home, for this thing is from me." So they heeded the word of the Lord and went home again, according to the word of the Lord. Jeroboam's golden calves. When Jeroboam built Shechem in the hill city of Ephraim and resided there, he went out from there and built Penuel. Then Jeroboam said to himself, "Now the kingdom may well revert to the house of David. If this people continues to go up to offer sacrifices in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, the heart of this people will turn against their master, King Rehoboam of Judah. They will kill me and return the King Rehoboam of Judah." So the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. He said to the people, "You have gone up against Israel long enough. Here are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." He set one in Bethel and the other he put in Dan. And this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship before the one at Bethel and before the other as far as Dan. He also made houses on high places and appointed priests from among all the people who were not Levites. Jeroboam appointed a festival on the 15th day of the 8th month, like the festival that was in Judah. He offered sacrifices on the altar, so he did in Bethel, sacrificing the calves that he had made. He placed in Bethel the priest of the high places that he had made. He went up to the altar that he made in Bethel on the 15th day of the 8th month. In the month that he alone had devised, he appointed a festival for the people of Israel, and he went up to the altar to offer incense.
There's a lot of power moves, I guess, in a way, going on. And I'm not exactly sure. It seems like the same kind of stuff that's been happening. You know, you move here, you get this amount of supplies, you get this amount of supplies. Again, I don't know how this brings me closer to my Lord and Savior. But yet we are reading it.
Well, I definitely see how it gets us to fighting a lot in the Middle East.
Please elaborate.
Well, right now, this is another power struggle, right? Like, there's a succession. There's succeeding from the nation of Israel. So Israel and Judah break up again, and it looks like, what's his name? Jeroboam. He took Israel, and then Rehoboam, who was Solomon's son, took Judah. But it looks like Jeroboam, he did the thing that Moses' brother Aaron did, where he was like, hey, look at these golden calves, you can worship them now. And that was it. But it seems like people really like worshiping cows.
Why do you think that is?
Thank you for asking. I feel like it's because in those times, cattle would have been so valuable. Like, you get so much from them, from leather to milk to meat. And that would probably be like the main currency as well. I think it'd be very similar to worshiping money, which is kind of something we do now.
Interesting.
I actually think that's like a couple of I was in church for a long time, so I've heard a lot of sermons. And a lot of times what they do is just kind of, just outright say this, like they were worshiping their form of money, which is what you're doing when you don't tithe. You're wanting to hang on to your money so much that you're worshiping it instead of giving it to God.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever the spin is, I don't agree with that, but sure.
Yeah, I think this is the only context I've ever heard any stories like this. Like I said, I don't specifically remember this story for real. But it is kind of interesting because I wasn't super familiar with Rehoboam. Like, if you had asked me what was Solomon's son's name, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But if you asked me what was David's son's name, it'll be like, yeah, Solomon.
Yeah.
Because, really, after David and Solomon, can you list any other, Bible kings?
Not particularly. I mean, but that's, I don't know, maybe my lack of learning.
You mean your ignorance?
Sure.
Yeah, that's possible. I don't think anybody knows everything. But, I mean, I would just say, in the general sort of, knowledge way, to where you don't have to be an expert in it. I think most people could kind of name David and Solomon without being experts in the Bible. Whereas going further than that, you'd have to kind of be more of a, oh, I'm really passionate about this.
Yeah, well, just like most other people, I'm just a casual Christian. I'm not a Christian, but just a casual.
Well, I think it's fair to call us culturally Christian. Just the way we were raised. Yeah. I think in the same way a lot of people are culturally Jewish, they're not really into necessarily the theological part, but it's become a culture. And you don't necessarily agree with everything, but it's I'm definitely from this.
Yes, and it impacts so many aspects of my life, no matter where I turn.
Yeah. So, it looks like next time we're going to be reading 13 through 15, a man of God from Judah. No names, but okay. Judgment on the house of Jeroboam, probably for that calf stuff. And then Abijam reigns over Judah, idolatry, and war. And there's someone named Asa. So, yeah.
Yeah, so more conflict in the Middle East.
Yeah, people, I don't know. Maybe people are afraid of what would happen if they stop fighting. Maybe that's what's going, like, a lot of times when you describe stuff that's going on in your relationships, I feel like that's part of the fear.
I'm afraid of what will happen if
No, the people you talk about. Like, they're afraid of what'll happen.
Oh, they're afraid of what? Yeah, no, I mean, I can see that. They're afraid too. I mean, I've talked about this with multiple people. It's they feel like they need to be in control of things for various reasons, such as they've been hurt before, or
they
don't want to look stupid. Yeah. They don't want. They need to feel like you care about them enough to where they feel safe or comfortable with you. And yes,
which is all reasonable, like, but there's just better ways to go about it than constantly arguing.
I agree.
Cool. All right, well, thanks for taking time out for this. Everybody, thanks for listening. Your body belongs to you.
Yes, and biblebreakdownpodcast@gmail.com. Be curious, not judgmental.